Hello everyone, this is Abhijit Chatterjee recording our weekly session of Chartsarefun. This is for the week of October 27th, recording this on the morning of November 1st. So this was yet another week where markets celebrated AI news, starting off with NVIDIA's founder and CEO Jensen Huang having a very bullish GTC, their annual conference, keynote talk where he talked about almost 500 billion of GPU-based revenue pipeline. He talked about some major deals that they are kind of partnering with. And so market celebrated, took NVIDIA way above 200, almost reached 212 or 211, and then pulled back closer to 200, but celebrated the news big time. Other AI stocks did extremely well. In particular, strong earnings from Google, topping 100 billion in revenue. Market celebrated that, and then pushing that stock up as well quite a lot, closer towards its 290 or so. And then market celebrated the earnings from Amazon. Amazon had 20% year-over-year revenue growth. For a couple of quarters, Amazon had dipped to kind of the 17% or so, but this quarter it significantly accelerated their cloud revenue growth at over 20%. So market celebrated that. Microsoft, Meta took a bit of a hit. Apple, of course, had extremely strong earnings with their iPhone 17 sales momentum, had very strong overall revenue growth projection of 10 to 12% for the next quarter, powered by the iPhone 17. But though it did trade quite like almost 5 or 6% higher in after hours, kind of closed back at flattish on Friday. Now, the key dampener this week was Chair Powell's FOMC meeting, and he kind of cautioned regarding markets' expectation for December rate cut. He kind of said that it was not a foregone conclusion that the rate would be cut in December, and then he stressed on it, saying it's actually far from it, as in don't expect a rate cut unless the job market deteriorates further. Now, he did kind of indicate that the lack of data gives them a kind of a bit of a concern, but then GDP growth has been strong and overall the economy has been holding strong, so that created a lot of dissent among the FOMC members in terms of the next rate cut in December. So today we will primarily look at the key market indices, S&P 500, the Nasdaq 100, ETF QQQ, and the Dow Jones Industrial, to see where could they really be climbing up to. We know we are in a melt-up mode. We know the market keeps climbing higher highs, proving the bears wrong. Well, where do we think that target could be in the next few weeks to a couple of months? So we'll look at that. And then we'll end with the cryptos. We'll look at there's been tremendous bearish chatter on cryptos. There are many top callers saying that Bitcoin has already topped out. Early October, people are now calling Bitcoin to fall all the way. I've seen projections all the way down to almost 20,000 or 25,000 on Bitcoin. So that kind of creates an opportunity, if any, to have a contrarian move higher. We know that November is typically a very bullish month for cryptos. In the past, like in 2021, November was the previous peak of the crypto cycle, and then we got a pullback. So we shall see if this November turns out to be yet another bullish month for cryptos. So we'll take a look at Bitcoin and Ethereum's chart. With that, our chartsarefun.substack.com. We appreciate you subscribing to the blogs. We typically publish it around 7 a.m. and we will send you the blogs through your email as soon as they get published. Our YouTube site is Chartsarefun as well. We do appreciate you subscribing to this channel and then hitting the like button if you like the videos. So talked about S&P 500, and we know that started off the week very strong. One was, of course, there's also the euphoric expectation of the China deal, which President Trump did seal with Xi. So that had kind of a positive momentum. But then the GTC news and the NVIDIA's kind of keynote from Jensen also added to momentum. So we say that the S&P 500 broke out from a cup and handle on its hourly chart. So this is the hourly chart. We can see that 67, 64 was on the left brim. From there, it fell to 65.50, climbed up to 67.52, and then pulled back towards 66.55, and then from there broke out with a gap. And that breakout with that gap measures from 65.50 to 67.52. You're talking about 202 points. Add 202 points to 67.52, that's 69.54. We didn't quite get to 69.54. We got to 69.20 earlier in the week, and then kind of pulled back on Thursday and Friday. So that and part of the pullback on Thursday was, you could say, the Chair Powell's warning about the rate cut to be kind of now a much lower probability. Market had almost a certainty on the December cut of close to 95%. And from there, it's closer now to, if you listen to Jeffrey Gundlach, who was interviewed right after the FOMC meeting. He's the famous economist, also called the Bond King. Jeffrey Gundlach said it's 50-50 that there's a possibility of a rate cut. So we'll see next week. ADP's job report will come out. If the government opens, then we'll also see the non-farm payroll data. But overall, market is now not so sure about the December cut. So there was a bit of a pullback going into Thursday and Friday. But if we resume a climb back into next week, then potentially that upside target about 69.50 is actually 69.54. So add 202 to 67.52, that 69.54 is potentially in the cards. But if you take a little bit of a longer term view on the daily chart, this is a beautiful cup and handle with a gap that it broke out from late June. That cup and handle from 61.47 to 48.35, that was the April 7th low, and then coming up to close to 6,050, breaking higher. That measures to 72.83, closer to 7,300. There are many that have put a S&P 500 target above 7,000 this year, and potentially, if that melt up continues, that possibility is very much there. That said, the bears would point the negative divergence in RSI not getting as strong as S&P keeps climbing, so that could be a bit of that negative divergence that could be cautioning. But if you really look at the, this is kind of right rim of the cup way more steeper than the left rim. 67, 64, 65, 52, 69.20. You're talking about 370 points or so added to the 69.20. That measures to close to 72.90, which is close to this 72.83. So maybe this is kind of a bit of a shallow handle pullback, and then we break 69.20 and keep climbing. So that melt up in the next couple of months is definitely a possibility that we think is potentially lining up with the NASDAQ 100 ETF QQQ. This also has a beautiful cup and handle breakout around the same time in late June. This cup from 538 fell to 401, and then 401 it came up to closer towards the if you hover around it on the level here, that's 535. So 535 to 401, you're talking about 134 points or so. So that to that 535, 536 measures to 670. So that's potentially where the QQQ could climb. We can see here it tested 637, pullback. If that climb resumes, then a possibility of that 670 is very much in the cards for QQQ. And here again, there is that negative divergence with RSI printing lower highs, though the most recent RSI was slightly higher than the previous one. So this could very much reclaim that negative divergence and have a stronger RSI climb if we continue the climb towards 670. So that's a possibility in the NASDAQ 100 ETF QQQ. Dow Jones Industrial has two key patterns. One pattern is this ascending triangle from 42.8K with the 36.6 at the bottom. So 36 to 42.8 is basically 6,200. Add 6,200 to 42,800. That's 49,000. That's not too far from where we are. We tested 48. We came within 1,000 points of that 49,000. Pull back to 47.52 or 47,500. If we can revert back higher, that potentially could be a test of the 49,000. And then if you look at this cup and handle from 47 to 45.5, 1,500 points added to 47,000 is 48,500. So that 48,500 to 49,000 is very much in the cards near term. But if you paint this Dow Jones picture from the top end of the resistance level at 45,000, 45,100 to 36.6 to 45 again, an ascending triangle here again with the higher lows. That breakout, so from 36.6 to 45, you're talking about 8,400. Add that to 45,000, you're talking about 53,400 is where the Dow Jones could climb. And that momentum of this climb could definitely get there with when the Nasdaq hits 670 on QQQ and the S&P hits closer to the 7283 or 7300. So those are potentially upside targets on all three key indices. And we're going to now move on to crypto. We're going to look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin in its weekly chart has a very beautiful cup and handle of 69,000, the 2021 top, pull back to 15,500, back to 73,800. So that 15,500 to 73,800, you're talking about 58,300. Add that to 73,800 is 132,100. So that's a cup and handle that has not yet been met. Yes, it has been climbing higher highs, and as it's been climbing higher highs, there is a bit of a, call it a rising wedge pattern. If you join all the peaks on the last year or so and join the lows, that's kind of a bearish rising wedge. That upside could, apex could climb towards that 132,000 potentially. And we think that that's still much a possibility. The RSI is pulled back to the neutral point of 50. As long as it holds that and resumes the climb, we could very much climb from here. And if you join the highs of the rising wedge, that is already crossing the 130 towards the 132. So the testing the top end of that rising wedge pattern could get us towards that 132,000. So we are extremely hopeful that Bitcoin is likely headed there. We can see that this is weekly chart. The last few weeks have left reversal tails. It did not close at the low end of the candle, but it actually left reversal tails. In fact, even from this week so far, the week hasn't ended. It'll end Sunday night at about 8 p.m. But if you look at that, there is reversals in these candles, which indicates that potentially Bitcoin could climb back towards this cup and handle target. Now, if you look at a near-term chart of Bitcoin, this is inverse head and shoulder potentially forming. 116,000, 116,400 is the key neckline. We got a left shoulder test at 105,800, then a deeper pullback to 103,000. That's the head. Back to 116,400. Key is a higher high from the previous neckline, 116,100 to 116,400, a slightly higher high. We can see that as that higher high came, RSI is at a higher low, which is a positive divergence. That's bullish. And then as we pull back from the right shoulder is slightly higher than the left shoulder, which is also bullish. So the fact that the right shoulder is higher than the left shoulder, the fact that the neckline is slanting upwards with the 116,400 above 116,100 are all bullish indicators of potentially of that breakout. So if you measure 103,600 to 116,400, you're talking about 13,000, 12,800 or so that potentially could go. So 12,800 to 116,400 is 129,200. So that's the inverse head and shoulder target, though the weekly cup and handle pattern here measures to 132,000. So 129 to 132 is where Bitcoin could be headed. And finally, Ethereum actually has a cup and handle that is even a lot higher from where it is trading right now. So we have a left shoulder from the 2021 peak, a left, sorry, not the left shoulder, sorry, the left brim of the cup from the 21 peak in 48.65, pullback as low as 883 towards the 2022 sharp pullback. Then from there, the recent high tested 3-4 months ago was 49.55, which is above the 48.65, about 90 points higher than that. So right brim higher than the left brim, which is usually a bullish sign. Only thing is that RSI has not been as strong as in the past, so that is a bit of a bearish sign. But if this is a handle, and look at the last, this is a monthly chart of Ethereum, by the way. The previous one, we're looking at weeklies. This is a monthly chart of Ethereum. So last couple of months, we can see that Ethereum left these reversal tails. Didn't close at the low end of the range, but left a reversal tail and kind of close towards above the lows of the month. So two reversal tails here right now. We've started off the month of November. We shall see if we can break out higher. That breakout from 883 to 49.55, you're talking about close to 4,100 points. At 4,100 to 49, 9,000. That's literally where Ethereum could climb. So we've been hearing some perma bulls like Tom Lee who had Bitmine as a company that is investing into Ethereum, and then there's another treasury company, SharpLink, that's SBET. So BMNR and SBET are the two treasury companies in Ethereum. There's been some bearish articles, which is a contrarian sign from Barron's about these, mining companies, more than the mining, the treasury companies on cryptos. And that to us is a contrarian sign that perhaps these could turn out to be higher highs coming in the crypto. And with the extreme pessimism on cryptos right now, perhaps the month of November could see that bullish momentum like we saw the month of November in 2021. And the same thing with Bitcoin. That last peak that we saw in 2021 at 69,000 was also in the month of November. So that's kind of a bullish month. We could basically see a strong climb from where we are right now, right below 110,000 at 109,850 towards the 132 in this span of this month itself, something for us to look into. In summary, we are looking at S&P 500 on its hourly chart, potentially heading up to 69.54. That target has not yet been met, but if we look at a bullish kind of analysis, the cup and handle here on that daily projects to 72.83. So that's very much a possibility that aligns with QQQ's bullish cup and handle from late June breakout towards 670. And Dow Jones has got two potential targets, a near-term target at 49,000 from this ascending triangle breakout above 42.8. And then if you look at 45,000, which is a key level of resistance that it broke from, that measures even higher to 53,400. So those are the targets for S&P at 72.83, QQQ at 670, and for Dow Jones closer to 53,400. Crypto's tremendous amount of bearishness out there. Many people are forecasting that cryptos are going to break down, and they've had it stop. But we feel that potentially this in cup and handle on the weekly measures to 132, and this rising wedge still has a potential chance of it to revert higher and test the upper end of the trend line of the wedge closer towards 132 or 131, and hence that's where we think Bitcoin is headed, and Ethereum could have an explosive growth. Don't know the catalyst yet, but it could have an explosive growth where this cup and handle could take it towards 9,000 as a potential upside. Good luck investing. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you.